up, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of Snowpiercer Season 1, Episode 2, Prepare to Brace. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next, and comment below on any video that you watch on my channel. So, now that we have the pilot out of the way, we could finally get into the nuts and bolts of Snowpiercer itself with Season 1, and once again, this episode continues the murder plots, murder of this individual, and it basically leads Andre and Bess to kind of go to different cabs and cars of Snowpiercer to talk to certain people to figure out what exactly is going on here, and it basically leads them to the butcher shop. Makes sense, you know, the way that this person has been killed, looks like a clean cut, looks like butcher cuts and stuff like that. You know, he's missing certain parts and anatomies of his body, and it's a very interesting kind of dynamic, but it has been done a billion times before. Dexter is a very prominent example of this, you know, with the ice truck killer and stuff like that. And so I wasn't really engaged with it. I didn't really find it that exciting. They end up in whatever car, they end up back in whatever car it is, and they talk to the mechanic who found the dead body, and he basically isn't really giving them information. There's nothing really to deal with him because he isn't really involved. He just found the body, so on and so forth. So this leads into the nightclub where we kind of learn about the young woman that has been brought out of cryo state, or, you know, state of state, or whatever you want to call it. And there's a singer who is basically Miss Audrey, who gives information about what this girl did, how she worked in this club, so on and so forth. It's a little bit of information about how maybe she could be useful in the murder situation. And this is where Zara comes back, and Andre and Zara go into this like room, like cubicle style in this nightclub. And we see kind of a little bit of the past of Zara and Andre's relationship. We see him in Chicago before the whole snow epidemic, before the world is starting to collapse upon itself. It's a really sweet, really tender, really kind of awe-inspiring moment because Andre and Zara really love each other. Andre is preparing marriage. It leads to the two of them end up having sex in the car, the whole room or whatever, and you can tell that there's still a relationship there, that they still want to be together. But Andre is so committed to the tail section, to starting this revolution, that he can't really be there with Zara, which is probably going to play out later on as the season unfolds. We'll see where Zara kind of puts her eggs in a, you know, basket type of situation. But it basically leads into them going to the butcher shop. They end up finding the other pieces of this dead man's body, his arms and legs and stuff like that. But the problem is, and what Andre says is, it almost feels like a setup, like the butcher didn't do it. It just seems too easy. And this is where we kind of learn about cannibalism. When Snowpiercer first got off in its first couple years, there were cannibals on this train, you know, people trying to survive by eating people, and that's very realistic in a sense of survivalism. And, you know, you look at stuff like Alive and Lord of the Flies and Ravenous to an extent. People who want to survive will go to any lengths to survive, and that's what this whole episode is dealing with. It's dealing about survivalism. The very first thing in this episode is we have the tail section having to pay the price for their revolution, and it could be a lot worse for them, but one person has to sacrifice themselves to basically show and put into place the tail section and make sure they know better. What really makes it kind of tragic and demented is they're going to do this to the little girl that killed like 6 of the police force or whatever. And I was like, I have no idea at what point what they're gonna do. Are they gonna throw this girl out in the ice and let her freeze to death, which is kind of a revolving plot throughout this episode. And what they do is the mother of this young girl sacrifices herself. So what they do is they put this like contraption on their arm, like right here, and then they like pour water on it, and then kind of like if you stuck your hand out in space, they stick her hand out into the middle of the minus 117 degree weather, and her arm basically freezes to the point where they can cut it off and break it off. It's like another form of brutalism or something like that, where like you know, back in the very olden, very medieval times, I guess you could say, where they would like chop off hands and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. That becomes like a running theme throughout the episode. We're finally seeing the cost and payoff about what this weather is like. You know, the problem is when they're going through the mountains, when they're going through the very sticky situation of what is actually happening after 7 years, where places that they've been to are now being covered by snow. There's a bunch of avalanches, and it's really showing the adverse effect of what the ice and the snow and the chaos that ensues with that situation. And you see it to the point where they have a bunch of cattle on board, which makes a lot of sense because, you know, you have to have meat, you have to have substance like that. Andre and Bess want to like investigate these butchers. They want to find out what's going on because Andre has a good inkling that the body parts might be there. And in the process, what has been kind of egged upon slowly as this episode kind of plays along, snow avalanche, which they actually categorize as like in different numbers, kind of like a tornado, F2, F1, F3, or whatever. This is like an F3 of a tornado where the avalanche is so strong that it causes basically the glass and all the structure to shatter in this cattle car. And that is crazy because these cattle, which are just there to be used as meat cattle, they basically, everything in the car, including the people in the car that take care of the animals, that kill the animals and stuff like that, they all freeze to death. And because this is on a network TV show, you see the animals and you see the people freeze like within seconds. And that is insane to watch because it's very, very graphic. It's very dark. The show holds nothing back in its violence, and you know it really plays into the effect of what could be a serious situation. What I think Snowpiercer is going to have to deal with as the season, if they keep it going, is going to have to deal with and what is going to go along, because they're going to get to a point where they're going to have to stop this train. The train's going to stop at some point. It's just the way this show is structured and the way I have a vision of the way it's going to go. But just to watch that, just to watch the arm, just to watch the nature of how bad this ice age is, it's pretty crazy, and it's a much more kind of sad and disturbing thing to watch. But you know, it is what it is, and it's the way the show presents itself. But overall, yeah, it's just a very interesting episode. We see Jennifer Connelly's character Melanie having to basically keep aligned the people in the rich portion of the car once again. One of the young girls, Nikki or whatever her name is, she has a entourage who has a gun, so they're like, oh, I'm going to protect it. It's a very, very annoying perspective of a character. It's just a really fascinating episode. We see basically Andre given the ability, he basically retrieves a clip so he can open up the jail cell. And he's kind of by reading from his mind, written down all this information to give to the tail end of the car because he's still trying to start that revolution. He even says the Bess, but who questions why he doesn't want to be in the tail section, what he's going to do. And he, of course, says, I'd rather go back to the tail section because he wants to support the people that he's been, trying to support. And I find that fascinating. I find the dynamic between Andre and, of course, Bess a really fascinating dichotomy. It's really interesting to see the three main tail characters get put in this status, which is going to be really interesting to see them come back, like Stephen Ogg and all those characters. It's really interesting to see the son of the mother who lost her arm, who's like in the middle of a hypothermia style situation where she could die, what he's willing to resort to get medicine for her. It's really, like I said, really graphic and kind of depressing to watch. It's a show about depression. It's a show about holding back people. You know, the Melanie character is trying to basically explain to Andre about how there's 3,000 people alive and they're willing to do whatever it takes to keep everybody in line. And Andre's like, you can't do that. It's eventually going to happen. Then we find kind of the revelatory information, the revelation that this Winifred character, whatever his name is, has information that the character that has been killed was going to give a certain individual. Because this is a series of a TV series, you can't give that information away because you'd be spoiling the whole season. But I find that funny because there's always that one situation where you learn of a very big, exploratory plot point or whatever, a big interesting plot point, and therefore it ends on that note where basically Melanie has revealed that the reason that he's sent in there to investigate this is because of that situation. Andre brings up the whole murder and cannibalism, the fact that not everything is kosher, not everything is on the level, and that the tail section is actually the most level-headed group of individuals that are being oppressed by the upper class of people. And then you see also tail section kids being recruited to work in the work cars and stuff like that. So it's a really kind of interesting look, kind of similar to Battle Royale or the Hunger Games, where a certain group of individuals are being oppressed and they're going to come up and they're going to rise up. It's going to happen eventually, maybe in the first season. It's already actually kind of happened. And yeah, so that's Prepare to Brace in a nutshell. I'm really fascinated to see where it's going to go. It needs to kind of push past this murder plot point, because the dichotomy, the progression of the systems working in this car is much more interesting than the murder mystery itself. Yes, we're starting to learn about cannibalism and the fact that the train conductor is, I'm calling him, is basically, or he or she is basically the one that has secrets that could be spilled out, that could like uprise everything and upheaval and all that good stuff. So it's gonna be really interesting to see. I'm really kind of intrigued by it. I think it's still kind of murder by numbers, kind of plot that doesn't really need to happen. But once again, the cast is up to the task. The cast is very well represented. They do a very nice job. It's very, very graphic. Once again, it shows us, in a sense, the true nature of how bad this storm is. Yes, we saw a little bit of it in the first season, but to see kind of the adverse effect of what could happen when something like this happens, and when people are put in that situation, like the mom or the cattle people or anything like that, it's really, really kind of crazy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. My take on Prepare to Brace. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the episode. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Like I said, it's much better than I'm giving it credit for sometimes, but it definitely needs to work on its character developments. It needs to push forward quicker. So there you go. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. Hit the dislike if you didn't like it. Hit the notification bell at the top to find what's coming next, and comment below on any video that you watch, including this one. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode. Peace out.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for checking out Movie Emporium. I really appreciate it. If you want to, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button and the bell at the top. Find out what's coming next for Movie Emporium. Also, check out these 2 videos. They're amazing. I think they're awesome. I think you'll enjoy them too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.